And this statement is, why do we have to encode? And I'm just going to read this. Why do we have to encode the raw data in a low dimensional latent space before classification or regression or reconstruction? And it says the answer is data compression, specifically in cases where our input data are high dimensional. See, nowadays people are so lost and so distracted, basically, and told so many different weird, wild things. Even if you're using the actual language, people don't see it. They think it's related to something else. This is related to higher dimensions. So it's saying that there's a higher dimensional language, and then there's a lower dimensional language. And how we're looking to get information is low dimensional. Low dimensional is just based on it. This is not an insult. It's like, okay, you need this in 2D. You need this in voice. You need this in 3D. Those are dimensions. So when you need something in a lower dimension that's coming from a higher dimension, it needs to be converted. And you need to remember this because the latent space is what does the conversion. And you're going to see it all in ancient times. You're going to see it in secret societies. You're going to see it everywhere. But you need to realize what is happening. What is happening is something that is higher dimensional. And this is what we were saying about like where we're really at. Like what we really are. We're high dimensional, but we're projecting ourselves into a low dimensional latent space for classification, regression, and reconstruction of self. So let's keep going here, but just to understand that the terminology here is exactly the same as the terminology that we know in occultism. So what I'm doing now is I need to connect the latent space for you with the reality of portals and metaphysics, okay? Because that is the closest term that we can really find besides 0 point, which, kind of not, some people know about 0 point, some people don't. The gap, we call it sometimes. Some people know about the gap, some people don't. Fifth dimension, some people call, or fourth dimension to fifth dimension tesseract elevator, but that's still kind of French. Portal. Okay, yeah. I've seen those before. All right, or I can conceptualize a portal. Okay. The latent space is a portal. So the first thing that you need, okay, so and also let me show you the latent space. Okay, yeah, because again, if I don't, just crawl through this before I walk. Then because I don't want to hear it's like, oh man, 7 is just so complex and like blah blah blah. I'm gonna show you the latent space. So I'm over here in Dream Studio, which of course is stability, and great name. And I'm just what do we got here? Let's say tribal monument. Ancient fetish. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. And this is just because, I'm sure some have done text to image before, but there probably will be some who have not. And so I'm doing a text to image right now. And this box is called the latent space, okay, in this case, because it is a two-dimensional. So this is a two-dimensional. I've actually designated the dimensions that I want, which we'll understand here why dimensions are so important. So I've given it my dimensions. I could have given it some negative prompt, but from the strictest level, all I've done is I've given it some words, and then it's used its deep neural network to produce the best image that it can of what it thinks that I'm asking for. And of course, a few things, and I spelled tribal wrong, so it kind of picked that up, right? So, and then if I obviously add jungle into this, then because of how a latent space works, then it's going to try to then take that word and then add that to the rest of the picture. And the reason why this is so important to understand is that what's going on in the background, and this is why neural networks need so much computational power, is because mathematics, which is math, is going on in the background. and everything becomes mathematics as far as my request. My request goes into a mathematical formula. It gets super complex and high dimensional. That's why they were saying math is all throughout the cosmos and everything is math, right? So it gets super complex and all this mathematicals, and then it gets all the way boiled back down and refined, and then it's bought into what it thinks that I want. Okay, so I just wanted to actually have, especially for those who would like, I have no clue what you're talking about at this stage because they've never even seen text to image, and which at this point would be like they would be lost in all this if we went forward. So this is exactly 100% why I need to show you just a simple example of the latent space. And as I said before, with machine learning, text to image is just one part of machine learning, diffusion models, et cetera. We teach about this in the AI masterclass. It's only one part of it, but the beauty of this is it's a visual experience. So you get a chance to see how these technologies like deep learning, LoRa's and all that work, but through the generation of something. So it's at least a reward at the end because you're like, oh, okay, that looks cool. And then the better you learn how to operate and work with the system, then the better that your imagery and your projections get. So I find something very vital in that because prompting to me is what manifestation, when you're actually calling it out or when you're actually saying what you want, to me, that's prompting. Okay. Because in the end, what I found is that oftentimes, especially when I first started, and I've been in this for 2 years now, when I first started, when I was in front of this blinking cursor, I would often not even know what to type, right? One second. And then I will realize that everything that I wanted to ask, I wasn't even using the right words. And this is basic English. This is also basic English. So not like we're using Python, which is technically really close to English, but C++, Fortran, something like as a computational code. No, we're using basic English. But as I said before, even our basic English was lacking logic. And logic simply is that like when you really need to deploy something, when you really need to tell people something or what to do, they don't need mumble or feelings and emotion. They need real instructions. And when they don't get real instructions, they just spit out, is this what you want? And this is what we have to realize about the reality, because I'm going to show you real fast that the reality is full of latent spaces everywhere. But if I don't know how to prompt, meaning I don't know how to talk, I don't know how to vibrate, I don't know how to really be clear about what I want, your image is not really going to be. And I could go further and further with this. Okay? So at the end of the day, I'm just showing you that when this box, you know, some of these text to image generators, they have like the box will go white first, and then it'll start filling in with dots. Let me show you that. Mathematical code will then be transformed over a process into an image. So remember, it understands the code. And then the only process that's necessary is for the code to then be brought into a lower dimensional language. And then it will bring the picture, which is a rudimentary form of what has been called, back into the reality. Okay, so now you know what latent space is in machine learning, and you know that by example. Are we clear? Okay, so I'm like, no, go back.